GPT 5.5 is here. It is their new frontier model. It is coming out in Codex and ChatGPT Pro. And yes, it is an incredible model. So we're releasing GPT 5.5, our smartest and most intuitive to use model yet, and the next step toward a new way of getting work done on a computer. Now, I've been using it for 2 weeks. I've been thoroughly testing it on my own code bases, on fresh code bases. I've used it in ChatGPT Pro, and it is a very, very good model. It fixes a lot of the issues that GPT 5.4 had. Specifically, it has a better personality, and I think that is in response to how difficult and soulless it was to use GPT 5.4 in OpenClaw. So that's something to note. All right, so a lot of this is just kind of marketing fluff. I mean, it's all true, but it's the stuff they say in every single blog post. So here is where it really matters. The gains are especially strong in agentic coding, computer use, knowledge work, and early scientific research. This is where it obviously matters. This is where the money is. This is where Anthropic showed us that you can grow incredibly fast revenue, really like doubling and doubling and doubling all the way up to $30 billion annual run rate right now with a hyper focus on enterprise coding. And OpenAI got the message. They are now focused on coding, and this is the result. They are starting to put out more models that are just better and better at agentic coding because the flywheel is just incredible. You build a coding model, you sell it to enterprise and make a bunch of money, you collect all of that incredible coding data, make the model better, and then use that model to train your next model. It is the self-improving flywheel of artificial intelligence. GPT 5.5 delivers this step up in intelligence without compromising on speed. Larger, more capable models are often slower to serve, but GPT 5.5 matches GPT 5.4 token latency and real world serving while performing at a much higher level of intelligence. So this is something that I know they spent a lot of time on, and I noticed a few things. One, you get the same level of intelligence as GPT 5.4 in far fewer tokens. It is just more token efficient overall. Now, that is counterbalanced by the fact that it is a more expensive model. But when it all balances out, you're paying less overall. And that's the key. And then also there's a higher ceiling on the total intelligence you can get out of a GPT 5.5 model. So more efficient per token, which is really good. More expensive per token, but more efficient as well. It also uses significantly fewer tokens to complete the same codex tasks, making it more efficient as well as more capable. And yes, I noticed this. It was very clear, not only in the amount of thinking tokens it was using, but also just how it explained things to me, which, when I'm coding, and I'm vibe coding especially, when it gives me an essay to explain one little change that I've made or that it has made, it's frustrating. I don't want that. It's too much. It's too much to read. And I always have to say, hey, explain that simply and explain that in short. And it always does after that. But now you don't really have to do that. It explains it in a really concise way. And that's also part of the personality improvement that I mentioned. If GPT 5.4 is explaining something to you in a very rigid, very formal essay, and then 5.5 is like, here, let me give you exactly what you need. That is an improvement in the personality, the tone of the messages that you're receiving from 5.5. So we're releasing 5.5 with our strongest set of safeguards to date, designed to reduce misuse while preserving access for beneficial work. 5.5 is rolling out to Plus, Pro, Business, and Enterprise users in ChatGPT and Codex, and GPT 5.5 Pro is rolling out to Pro, Business, and Enterprise users in ChatGPT. And of course, if you're talking about real world AI usage, you have to talk about how it actually works in the enterprise environment. And the sponsor of today's video, Box, put together a bunch of benchmarks specifically for 5.5. Let's take a look. All right, so this is Box AI complex work eval for GPT 5.5. And of course, they're comparing it to GPT 5.4. What you are seeing is a significant step up from 5.4 to 5.5. Purple, 5.4, yellow, 5.5. That is 67 to 77% on their accuracy index for their full data set. Here are industry specific, and this is basically how well each of the models works within the Box environment, specifically for enterprise use cases. So for financial services, a massive nearly 20-point jump. For healthcare, from 61 to 78, public sector, 59 to 72, media and entertainment, a lesser but still significant 13% jump. And by the way, if you're not already a Box customer, go try them out. We use it at Forward Future. I use it as my data store for OpenClaw. And of course, you get all of the enterprise use cases. You actually get to extract real insights out of all of your unstructured data. And it is thanks to things like having GPT-5.5 in Box AI, which I'm going to show you right now. So here we go. We have Box Agent GPT-5.5. We're going to load up a set of documents. This is financial data. Analyze the connection between project heritage mentioned in the engineering roadmap and the performance of the enterprise customer segment in the churn summary. This is not simple. And after waiting, this is sped up. We actually get the full analysis. GPT 5.5 will be available in Box AI very soon. Join over 100,000 other enterprise businesses using Box like my company does. You get compliance, you get governance, you get all of the enterprise features you come to expect from Box. And then you also get Box AI. So go check it out. Link in the description down below. Thanks to Box for sponsoring this video. Let's look at the benchmarks. GPT 5.5, 5.4. We have 5.5 Pro right here versus 5.4 Pro. Here's where it matters. Finally, they also list competitor models. We have Opus 4.7 and GPT 3.1 Pro. Really, the only one that matters is Opus 4.7. So terminal bench. This is agentic usage. Look at the difference there. So we have a 7-point jump from 5.4 to 5.5 and just completely dominating Opus 4.7 on terminal bench. This is the model's ability to go into terminal and operate terminal, CLI, right? This is really important for agentic usage. This is also really important for tool calling. We have Expert SWE internal. I don't actually know what Expert SWE is. Maybe, I guess it's obviously an internal benchmark. 73 as compared to 68. They don't have the other competitors. Fine. GDP val. This is a benchmark that the OpenAI team has created. This is testing real world usage, actual valuable knowledge work usage for the model. And it's a little bit better. We have a 1.9% improvement from GPT 5.4. Here's 5.5 Pro, interestingly enough, is actually a decrease. Here's Claude 4.7, Claude Opus 4.7 at 80.3. OS World Verified. This is the model's ability to do computer control, browser control. They basically give the model an environment and let it control a computer. And we can see it's an improvement, not a huge one, 3.7%, on par with Opus 4.7. I have to be honest, I don't do a lot of browser control. I don't do a lot of computer control. I just find it to be excruciatingly slow, and it's just not a use case that I need now. If things can be controlled through the CLI, they should be. I don't want point and click for my agent. It is slow and prone to errors. So please, everything should have a CLI. Everything should have an API. That's the way to go. That's how to get the most out of agents. That's what I want. It's also fast. Okay, so do that. If you're building stuff, do that. Browse Comp, which is a web browsing benchmark. GPT 5.5 coming in at 84.4. That would make sense why GPT 5.5 Pro, which is the model within a harness that is specifically built for research and very difficult problems, would be so good at this benchmark in particular in web browsing. Very close second, GPT 5.4 Pro. So not a huge improvement there. At Claude Opus 4.7 down at 80%, 79%. We have Frontier Math. It got the #1 score on 5.5 and specifically 5.5 Pro. Frontier Math Tier 2, same thing. Yeah, look, Pro is for the hard problems. GPT 5.5 and Codex is for coding. That's how you got to think about it. But what we're seeing here is compared to Opus 4.7, it is much better. Here is the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, which is a bunch of different benchmarks indexed and shown here. So what we're seeing is two things. Across the y-axis, we have the actual score, and across the x-axis, we have the output tokens. What you are looking for is high, higher is better, and left is better. Smaller is better across the output tokens. And what that means is you're getting more efficiency per token, more intelligence per token. And so 5.5, higher and more left. That is what we're looking for here. Okay, same thing here. I think a big thing that they did, and what I noticed, is that it is very token efficient. And so although it is more expensive, which I mentioned earlier, and I'll show you the prices in a second, it is also more token efficient and more token efficient enough to offset the increase in price. All right. So that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing higher intelligence. So the light blue line is 5.5. The darker blue line is 5.4. We are seeing higher intelligence nearly across the board, except for right here on this one, but much cheaper. So let's look. For this score, so this is one of their scores on Terminal Bench. I think this is probably lowest effort. It got a 34.2 on GPT-5.4 with basically 4950 output tokens. Over here, we got 39.1 with 2165 output tokens. Significantly more efficient, significantly more intelligence per token. I love that they're focusing on this now. Same thing here. Expert Suite, we're just seeing it much more token efficient, and you also get a higher intelligence index out of it. So we actually did some testing. Let's look at some of the demos they put together. Prompt, attached image, implement this as a new app using WebGL and Vite using real data from the Artemis 2 mission. Make sure to test the app thoroughly until it's fully functional and looks like the app in the picture. Pay close attention to the rendering of the planets and fly past. Now, I want to stop on this for a second. Make sure to test the app thoroughly until it is fully functional. Why is that so important? One thing that it's obviously a lot better at is visual inspection. You give it a prompt in Codex, you let it build something, and it will just continue to look at the thing until it gets it right. And I have a few examples that we'll show you in a minute, but it does that better than any other model. And it's able to actually see what's on the page and iterate and continue to improve what's on the page better than any other model, including Opus 4.7. So that in itself is extremely impressive and just allows the agent or GPT 5.5 in Codex to act much more autonomously. It's able to complete projects much more autonomously without me having to say, oh, that button is actually in the wrong place. It will just go do that for me. So this is, very cool. Looks good. Looks very complete. Earthquake tracker, okay, kind of a more simple website. I mean, to be honest, I'm not all that impressed with this. I think another thing that they did to improve 5.5, at least the front end design, is not use a lot of pills, don't use a lot of boxes. And it's clear here they kind of, it improved it a little bit, but look, being able to create a portfolio website or a chart website, this has all been done. So I'm not overly impressed with this. Dungeon game. This, on the other hand, is really impressive. This kind of reminds me of Dungeon Keeper. Do you guys remember that game? Way back. That was one of my favorite games. I hope I'm saying the name right. This game looks very impressive. A full 3D hack and slash game. Seems to work really well. The animation of the actual knight is pretty good, but you know what? It actually works. And yeah, the visuals look really good. You can actually see the lighting looks really good. You can see shadows, the logic. There's actual logic. So when you're hitting these little imp guys, these little goblins, they actually have life. And as you're hitting them, their life gets reduced. So yeah, very cool. Okay, let's look at the last one. 3D game. Tank down. So we've seen stuff like this. Let's see if it is actually more impressive. Yeah, it's okay. I've seen stuff like this. Not overly impressed with it. All right, let's keep going. All right, beyond benchmarks, early testers, hey, that would be me and a bunch of other folks, said GPT 5.5 shows a stronger ability to understand the shape of a system, why something is failing, where the fix needs to land, and what else in the code base would be affected. This is actually something that I gave them in particular. Some feedback I gave them in particular. What I noticed about GPT 5.5 is that it can see around corners almost. I told it a problem I had in my production website, and I didn't give it access to the production database so it could actually look at the logs, look at the errors, look at the real production data, but I just roughly described what the issue was, and it knew how to fix it. And Opus 4.6 and 4.7 did not. It was very impressive. So it has this almost intuition about how the app should be operating in a production environment that I haven't seen elsewhere. It was really impressive. So GPT 5.5 is better than GPT 5.4 at generating documents, spreadsheets, and slide presentations. Yes, this is true. Jonas specifically gave GPT 5.5 within ChatGPT Pro very wide-ranging and thorough documents to create. And he said it had no problem creating 60-page coherent, well-designed documents. So in the ability to actually create real-world knowledge work documents, it's very good. Today, more than 85% of the company uses Codex every week. Why is it not 100%? What role in the company could possibly not benefit from using their own models? In comms, the team uses 5.5 and Codex to analyze 6 months of speaking request data. Oh my God, that's like 80% me asking to interview Sam Altman right there. Build a scoring and risk framework and validate an automated Slack agent so low risk requests could be handled automatically while higher risk requests still route to human review. Scientific research. This is really where we're going to see good improvements. I think that it's just like the ceiling of 5.5 feels a lot higher than the ceiling of 5.4. Plus, if you're like comparing apples to apples, you get a lot more out of 5.5, but at a cheaper price because the token efficiency is so much higher. That's the thing to keep in mind. All right, let's talk a little bit about that token efficiency. I don't think people are going to understand how important this is because the intelligence is improving, but the cost per intelligence is actually decreasing. And this is good for most people. Now, if you are trying to research frontier science, frontier math problems, the hardest coding problems in the world, you need the highest ceiling of intelligence. And that is what 5.5 gives you. But for everyday users like me, I just want an incredible coding model. I want it to be as cheap as possible and as fast as possible. And that's where token efficiency comes in. That's why it's so valuable, because the same thing I was getting with 5.4 is now cheaper and it's more concise. I really like that. Serving 5.5 at 5.4 latency required rethinking inference as an integrated system. 5.5 was co-designed for, trained with, and served using GB200s and GB300 NVLink 72 systems. And remember, we talked about self-improving artificial intelligence? Codex and GPT 5.5 were instrumental in how we achieved our performance targets. Codex helped the team move faster from idea to benchmarkable implementation, sketching approaches, wiring experiments, and helping identify which optimizations were worth deeper investment. Oh, right. One thing that they mentioned in our little pre-access group is that 5.5 will not be available via the API yet. It will be very soon, but not quite yet. So for API developers, will soon be available. Let's look at the pricing page. Yeah, so it's double the price. $5 per million input tokens, $30 per million output tokens versus half that rate for 5.4. That is expensive, yes. However, you should notice the token efficiency, the intelligence per token efficiency improvement, and it should offset that price at least somewhat. Now, when you mix in batch pricing, caching, flex pricing, controlling the thinking token budget, you don't, for most use cases, need extra high thinking. Again, we're talking about the ceiling of what's possible in this model. You don't need the ceiling for 99% of use cases. So it's not, the effective pricing is not really going to be 5 and 30.